Great. Hi, everyone. So I hope you enjoying the session at ICTforAg so far. I'm Victoire from IDinsight. And in this session, I'll be presenting some of our early findings of a study we're conducting with the IDRC. And this session is around the use of digital tools by smallholder farmers in North and Sub-Saharan Africa, and more specifically looking at inclusivity and gender. Before we start, maybe I can give you a quick intro on IDinsight. So we are an international NGO using data and evidence to inform public policy. So we're using a broad toolkit of advanced data and econometric tools to determine the true impact. So that includes RCTs, but also experimental evaluation, data and analytics, and machine learning. We are over 300 of us. I am based in the Dakar office, but we have 8 other offices around the globe. And you can see here on the screen some of the clients we've been working with in recent years. So that includes national governments, the World Bank, major foundations, and NGOs as well. In this specific project I'll be discussing in the session, we've been working with the International Development Research Center. So the IDRC leads research as part of Canada's foreign affairs and development efforts. So I have a strong focus on evidence-based policies and funding research in developing countries and through local researchers. So maybe now let me give you a bit more information on the scoping study itself we've been doing. So we worked on a 6-month scoping study on the use of digital tools for smallholder farmers across both North and Sub-Saharan Africa. And the goal was to identify research gaps in the sphere and present recommendations regarding climate change, how does digital tools enhance inclusivity for smallholder farmers, how does that bridge the gender gap, and really to guide the research agenda for IDRC in terms of potential areas for further exploration, and also lists researchers and potential partners that could be working with them. So that's why a lot of people that I've been discussing in the past days are really relevant in this study. So before I dig into the insights part, just want to give you a really brief overview of the methodology and how we looked at the scoping study. So what we've been doing is 2 phases. So first, really high level understanding the ecosystem of ICTforAg. So really talking with funders, researchers, advisors, innovation ops, digital innovators themselves. And it's great to see that many are speakers as well in other sessions. And coupled with literature review, the goal being to identify preliminary research gaps. And then we've decided to dig into 3 focus countries, Kenya, Senegal, and Morocco, to really validate those gaps locally. What I will be sharing in terms of findings, I believe early findings from this first phase and really related to gender and inclusivity. So going into the findings, I think one of the first findings that came out of the key informant interviews and out of the literature is something that I think if anyone has attended at least one session over the past days, you're familiar with, but we can see that smaller farmers as a specific group face a lot of barriers to access digital services. Those are technological, socio-economic, and cultural. What we heard from respondents is most technology being the largest barriers for smaller farmers. We know that there's a lot of connectivity issues and inconsistent network coverage from country to country and the continents. There's a limited smartphone and internet access, and still digital literacy is quite low. And on top of that, what we've heard is really sometimes a resistance to technology adoption. So possibly coming from a lack of trust and really needed to enhance trust building when building digital for agriculture tools. Socioeconomic is a challenge as well in terms of financial constraint of both acquiring a phone, whether it's a smartphone or a feature phone, and also the cost of data that comes with it. And that's linked also to language and literacy, challenged by different levels of educations for smallholder farmers. A third barrier is cultural. So half of the respondents we've been discussing with really stressed how that can influence how smaller farmers interact with digital tools. We know that there's sometimes a disconnect between the design of the tool itself and then the needs of the farmers in the different communities. And that's specifically the case for women farmers that face even more challenges, and we will come back to that later. So just want to highlight a few steps that we've seen digital tool innovators, so by that I mean actors themselves, have been taking on to really sort of remove these barriers. Some of the first one are user-centric design, that being making a tool that is really simple, with simple interface. Digital tools providers have mentioned using colors, using audiovisual aids as well, and really having a strong on-the-ground engagement during the conception phase of the product. And then the second one is a clear value proposition. So really focusing on tools that solve the fundamental problems of farmers, and sometimes providing free services if needed. And that seems really high level, but we've seen in the deep dive scoping a lot of disconnect between the tool itself and what is needed by the farmers in terms of more specific advice, locally in terms of value chains. So there's sometimes a clear disconnect. It also needs to cater to diverse user groups. And that means, again, during the conception phase, really thinking of who will be the users in terms of farmers' profile, gender, demographics, and even geography within the country. Other steps include accessibility and connectivity. So we stressed the challenge of connectivity and internet access. So that means providing a tool that is digital, but that works both also offline, and that works across a variety of technologies. So that could be SMS, USSD, IVR, WhatsApp. Digital innovators have stressed also the importance of having tools that can support local languages as well. So that can be a challenge when in a country there's like multiple local languages in terms of replicating the services. And then most importantly, what came out as an early finding is the need for offline support. And by that, we mean really having still this hybrid mode between digital and in-person engagements. That helps to build, to connect farmers with the tool, to build trust, and to help them should they have any challenges in using the tool. And that in-person support can be a local agent, hired directly by the AgTech, can be local ambassadors, but it can also be cooperative leaders or value chain providers if the tool is organized within a specific value chain. And on that, I'd like to share a few examples of good practices we've seen during our interview phase. So the first one is about Jangolo. So if you don't know Jangolo, they are a marketplace in Cameroon that connects farmers, large farmers and smaller farmers directly with consumers. I think they have around 25,000 farmers on the platform, and they've seen specifically for smaller farmers strong challenges in having them using the tool and uploading their products on the platform. What we've done is they recruited young people who are comfortable with technology to act as intermediaries. So this they work as ambassadors, and then they do two things. First, they recruit farmers to use the platform, and then they really do the in-person support. So really helping with human trust and clarifying anything that might not be clear for the farmers. And what's interesting as well is that they've designed a program which is self-sustaining. So the ambassador need to validate volume modules that are online. to make sure they're up to date with Django latest updates. And that also helps the platform itself to really be able to scale without doing many trainings with local ambassadors and field team as well. And another angle we'll like to approach is specifically gender. So in the study, we looked at how women farmers are using the tools. We know from different studies that women are make up half of the smallholder farmers in sub-Saharan Africa, but they represent only 25% of active users and even less regular active users. So in that specific study, we looked at how women farmers interact with digital in terms of accessing digital and then using and benefiting from digital tools. We can see a certain gap. So evidence, and then that was further informed by our kin from interviews. You can see that women face barriers in accessing the tools due to some interrelated constraints. So there is a mobile and internet gender gap, which is well informed. We know that women are 40% less likely to own a device in sub-Saharan Africa, but number is higher in some countries as well. But more importantly, we can see in many sub-Saharan countries a lot of cultural and social norms that are hindering women's decision-making capabilities. And they're not able to use a phone at their own will and to really benefit from the digital tools. And that's also exacerbated by education and literacy, women having overall a lower education access compared to men on the continent. So that's, I would say, external constraint. But our study showed as well that actually, in terms of usage and benefits, digital services themselves are often not designed with women farmers in mind, so that even more accentuate the gender gap, if I can say. We've seen that some of the digital services don't address crops or value chains or market activities that are managed by women, so that really affect usage rates and the value proposition. For example, we've seen that in some countries, women have a preference of savings over loans, but the majority of digital financial services are actually loans. They often target landowners, and access to land is a major barrier for women in many countries on the continent. Another aspect is not the tool itself, but what goes around the tool. We've seen that there can be a lot of challenges for women to access trainings and then have different interactions. So having no trainings sort of really mitigate your chances of being able to use the tool correctly. Some of the good practices that have been done by digital tool owners in terms of having a tool that benefits women farmers. First, again, when it comes to design, really involving women in the design process from the beginning to make sure it meets their needs, and then really targeting value chains that involves women. And then we've seen a lot of digital tools and actors that have sort of it doesn't have a specific gender approach, but at least leverage data and insights to really understand better who are the women farmers using the tool. So they have gender disaggregated data or dashboards that can really allow them to follow women's participation and then address potentially bottlenecks. Another important aspect is field operations. So we shared that an important point around digital tools is having this offline presence. And that's even more the case when it comes to having women farmers using the tool. We've seen that there's positive evidence in using female agents who are more effective in engaging with women farmers, and then also implementing gender-sensitive training as well. So next, I'd just like to share a few examples of digital tools that have implemented gender-specific practices. So the first one is OCO. If you don't know OCO, they've developed affordable crop insurance. So they are present in West Africa as well as in Uganda. In Mali, they've seen through some data that less than 10% were actually using their products. And looking at the root cause, they could see that actually women don't grow the same crops as the one offered through the crop insurance. So what we decided to do is really to, through discussion and focus groups and understanding female needs, introducing a specific crop insurance for peanuts, which is in Mali, a crop that is mostly grown by women. And then on top of that, they established a team of female agents. So they really, again, improved their outreach efforts, improved trust. Even sometimes the husband had more trust in a woman using this product. And then they really made an effort to understand what are women constraints in attending training. And then they implemented some gender-sensitive trainings. And that was really effective. They could see that within 2 years, their insurance program, the participation of women increased to 33%. Another example that really shows the complexity of having the gender gap and having women using platforms is Agromol. So Agromol is an agri-tech in Nigeria, and they really made an effort to actually design a gender-focused product, really looking at women's farmers' barriers. So they knew that in Nigeria, you need a collateral to have a loan, but many women don't have land. So they designed the loan without needed to have to be a landowner. And after a few months, few years, they could see that actually the take-up for the loan was quite low. And then looking deeper at that, they could see that the barriers to adoption mostly came from gender social norms. So actually some men were worried about their wife's financial independence and really stopped the women from using the product. And what really comes out of it is that actually there's some design aspects that can be done. So you see more and more organizations actually trying to increase women participation in that product. But you have to overcome the design first, but you really have to tackle social norms. And these are more difficult to tackle in the first place. One organization that really looked at tackling social norms is Roots in Kenya. So for those who don't know Roots, they're a grassroots NGO that is committed to empowering women, putting digital tools as one of their aspects to help women achieve economic independence. So they're doing educational videos on farming practices. They're supporting women-owned business. And they could see that one challenge was for women to actually own a phone. So it's sort of implementing cost-free phone access and financial assistance for acquiring phones, and really also training that boosts technological confidence among women so they can really feel at ease with using the tool. And what's interesting with Goods is that they use a bottom-up approach. So really using farmers' needs and farmers' insights in terms of the design of a tool, and they really call for better investment and better time spent into the field for the broader community. As one of the research gaps we've identified is really understanding women needs and their specific, and make sure that their voice are heard when designing a digital tool. So maybe I'll just wrap up with by sharing some of the research gaps we've seen in terms of gender and the use of digital tools. So one of the main gap, we touched upon it, is around understanding gender adoption, usage, and benefits of these tools. So really understanding the social norms that influence women's access, and really what are the root causes and what can be grounded solutions to address these gaps. And then a second gap that we heard from a lot of architects that are willing to adopt a more gender inclusive lens, but is that there's a lack of quality data and gender differences in terms of digital adoptions, and that could really help support more effective interventions. And that includes understanding women's different profile and regional specificity. So maybe I'll just wrap up with some of the takeaways and of the early findings we've seen in this scoping study, really related to inclusivity and gender. One being that we see that smallholder farmers face a lot of barriers when using digital. These are technological, cultural, and socioeconomic barriers. We see a shift towards architects using a more inclusive approach in terms of user-centric design, having some offline support, which is still needed, and then more solutions that are more grounded into the realities of farmers, but that still need works to be done. And then in terms of gender-specific constraints, we see that social norms remain one of the main concerns, and that there's still a scarcity of gender-specific data, and especially case study on addressing social norms. So that was a lot of content. So maybe I'll stop here and see if there's any questions in the Q&A. So I see one question. What have been the most effective tools to change norms and reduce gender inequity? I think that's a good question. I mean, if by tool you mean a specific architect, I don't know if I have, I think some of the specific examples. So OCO, that really looked at the root cause of, looking at gender data within your, so not only having, I'll say broad farmers data, but having gender disaggregated data that can really help you understand why women are using this product or are not using this product is definitely a first step. And then being really able to be agile and effective and act upon it, going back to the fields and to potentially pilot other approach, I think is definitely effective. So the example I've shared with OCO that designed this specific crop for a specific value chain that was relevant for women. We can see that Groots as an NGO looking really at a grassroots approach and first hearing the needs of women farmers before designing any tool is definitely interesting. In terms of good practices, we've seen a lot of evidence on having a field team composed of women has been more effective in terms of gaining women's trust in the tools, allowing men or like husbands to let them use the tool, and then introducing gender safe training have been quite effective as well.